With that insightful keynote address, we now move into the first thematic session of the day on geopolitics and security trends. To lead this session, I now invite Lieutenant General V.G. Khandare, PVSM, AVSM, SM, to offer his opening remarks as the chair of this session. General Khandare is currently the Principal Advisor in the Ministry of Defense. He was the Military Advisor to the National Security Council Secretariat of India at the Secretary level from 2018 to 2021 and held key roles including Director General of Defense Intelligence Agency. An expert in intelligence, counter-terrorism, and information warfare, he has deep experience in strategic and operational analysis. I kindly request you, sir, to come on the stage.
Firstly, thanks a lot, Dr. Kalpesh, General Rana, for having called us here. And I can say that on behalf of General Vashne, General Eri, Professor Pant, Alok, because this is a very good thing that you've done, moved a discussion out of Delhi. Not because of the weather, but because of one fact that we need to reach out to a bigger audience, because India is such a big country and you cannot have everything Delhi-centric. So I think that's a wonderful initiative that you've taken. And the way the curation of this particular seminar is also quite good. And the first session, when we are talking about geopolitics, the security issues, and defense technology. So here, I will take this opportunity in the next about 30 minutes or so to mention to people in a very informative way as to what all is happening. Because subsequently, we have very learned people who will talk about the topics which have been mentioned. Since most of you are looking at the defense sector, please remember this particular year has been declared as the year of reform by the Ministry of Defense. So the ministry itself has declared because there is a realization that reforms are required. So on 31st December 2024, Honorable Raksha Mantri Rajnath Ji, when he called all the secretaries of the Ministry of Defense, his direction to them on the eve of the new year was very clear, that the year 2025 is to be considered as an year of reform. And alongside that, there are multiple initiatives, like there is a decade of transformation absorption. The army has taken a particular resolve to view this year and a decade for absorption of technology. So what is the bottom line in that? Excuse me. So here, unless we realize ourselves that there is a change required. So just after another 10 days, the Defense Secretary, while addressing a gathering at the Air Force Auditorium, brought out very clearly what ails the Ministry of Defense. I have never seen in 4 decades plus of my association with the uniformed forces, openly a bureaucrat saying and using terms like our processes and procedures are on luxurious timelines. He mentioned that the entire system is broken. I'm using his words. And I would request you to go on open source and just Google, you will get this particular speech. Unless you yourself decide that there is something that needs to be done, how will you do it? So that is the first self-realization that has been declared openly. This is point number 1. Now the next point. Initiatives which the services have taken about getting those stores, those technologies, those products which are required by the frontline troops, whether it's the Navy, Air Force or Army, and that is where the outreach to the private industry. Now again here, I will explain how this process is going on. While we may be talking only of drones today, but that is not the way to do it. We will have to talk about everything which is required by the armed forces. It is for the nation. It is obligatory for the nation to give the best possible technology, products and services to the armed forces which protect the sovereignty. It is incumbent upon the nation to do that. Now, when we say incumbent upon the nation, then there are the public and private sector both. In 2021, on October 12th, Honorable Prime Minister went open on television with 10 startups from the space sector, private sector, and mentioned that ISRO will focus on exploratory work in outer space, and the defense or the security needs will now start focusing towards the private sector. That's a very big statement for anyone to do. General Vashne and me, we were together in handling these space issues. In fact, he would have been the best DG DSA, the first one. But again, we have very complicated relationships, that this vacancy, that vacancy. Anyway, we lost out, the nation possibly lost out. General Vashne, you would have been a wonderful DG DSA. Now, when this private sector initiative was announced, what did it mean? Whether it is maps, whether it's navigation, whether it's time, whether it's geospatial imagery, whether it's communication, everything is from space. Is the government going to do it on its own, or all of us have to contribute towards that? And how much are we contributing towards that? You know, when we are talking, there is a term mentioned, innovation. Along with that, you have to add indigenization. Why do I say indigenization? Can any startup or can any MSME in India in the mapping sector compete with Google? What is required to compete with Google? Market. Why is Google here? Because we have a 1.4 billion population. Out of that, nearly 1 billion people are using smartphones. Very honestly, please tell me, is anyone out of you using the Indian mapping solution? Please raise your hand. How will it succeed? If we are the consumers and we are encouraging foreign products over our own products, that is the reason our private industry normally just focuses towards the defense. That's not how scale of manufacturing will succeed. You look at Map My India, it's an Indian solution. You look at what Sridhar Vembu gives. He gives the indigenous antivirus. He gives indigenous data cloud. We are not wanting to patronize, and we are expecting the government to do everything. How will that work? There is a realization and there is an accountability to each one of us that we have to ensure. Same is the case when I take you ahead towards drones. I have seen drones are being made in universities. Day before yesterday, I was in an infantry battalion where my soldier is making a drone. What kind of a drone? Obviously, we don't want him to make hail or mail. But he is making what he needs. He is making at a shoestring budget and he is using it. Take your mind to what the Chief of Army Staff said a couple of weeks back. Especially those from the drone industry should remember that they have to monitor what is the intent and what is the direction of the hierarchy. General Upendra Dwivedi mentioned that he sees the Indian Army with every soldier having a drone. He was talking of FPV. Why? That FPV is going to add to the potency of that particular individual in the combat space. Today he fires a kinetic weapon with an effective range of say 300 meters to 500 meters. With an FPV he will reach out to about 2 kilometers. So you don't have to get into close combat unless it is a last minute requirement. But you are able to deal with your adversary at a distance which is a standout distance of 2 kilometers. Today that is the distance which is used by an armored tank to engage an enemy. So see how technology incorporation will bring in changes. So while we keep talking about changes in warfare, changes in methods of engaging the enemy, or methods of keeping the enemy away and ensuring deterrence by strength. So technology adds on to the strength. So that is how we should be looking at, and I do not blame anyone because the system is such that the designer, the incubator, innovator, the developer, the production agency have limited knowledge about how combat actually takes place or how it would take place in future. This is where a whole of nation comes up, and whole of nation involves cross-pollination of people, ideas, and experience. So when you have veterans, when you have people who, and please don't look at veterans looking at me that I'm 67 years old. We have short service officers coming out with experience. And if they are integrated into the private sector, they are the ones who will be able to tell you exactly how we fight or how we should be fighting and what is lacking. And this is the singular advantage that we see in Israel. Why is it called a startup nation? After 2 or 3 years of conscription service, when the individuals come out, boys and girls both, after a brief respite in India, in Himachal, they go back and they are embedded into these startups or they start their own startups. So from the point of initiation, they are straight away a contributory factor in that industry. Such an ecosystem will have to be made. What is the issue with us? Every time a startup or an MSME is looking at a veteran, they are looking at him to get orders. Believe me, I am telling you with my experience, a man who has quit uniform is the worst salesman ever. But he is a very good mentor. So please don't waste your energy, time and money on that, but use him for mentor because that will stand you in good stead in the longer run. Now let me also focus something at the national level. There is a singular mission of Viksit Bharat 2047. And in Viksit Bharat, there are a whole lot of verticals which have to be developed. Economics has to be developed, political stability has to be ensured, intellectual priority has to be given, your commerce has to grow, your energy sector has to be stable. So many things are required there. And each of this vertical, each of this domain which is required in your comprehensive national power is vulnerable. And that is where non-kinetic warfare has become very important today. Every resource has got weaponized. There are myths which have been busted. We all grew up being told that the era of warfare is over. I am still looking for those strategists who said this. You look at the wars which are going on, you look at the conflicts, years on year, it is just going on. We grew up being told that before the war starts, you will get clearly 2 weeks of warning time. There is no warning time. You look what happened in Doklam, you see what happened in Galwan, there is no warning time. We were told there is full transparency of the battlefield. We have a long way to go to achieve that. One of the biggest bogeys was if there is a war and if there is a war between or where nuclear powers are involved, the international community will intervene and stop that war. The international community definitely will intervene to sell weapons to you. And that is where indigenization is important. So unless we all put our shoulder to the wheel, the indigenization in the form that we desire will not happen. What is the meaning of that? General Vashne mentioned about initiatives which have been taken, IDEX. We expanded that to Aditi, where there are important initiatives in sectors of space and cyber which cannot happen in the amount that has been promised. So we brought in Aditi for a bigger amount. That is one part of it. In addition to that, the kind of linkages that we've had now to think tanks and academia, and practically at every place, our training establishments and our formations are increasingly linked up to the academia. So there is again cross-pollination of ideas and cross-pollination of expertise. So there is experience at one place, expertise at another place, and we have to grow together, and that's what has been happening. More of it will happen and more of it should happen. When we talk of technology, along with technology and products, there is a requirement of human capital. We talk of human resource is just a resource, but by the time it becomes good, it becomes capital. So we are interested in human capital, and that can only happen when we have people training. In China, the non-commissioned officers are training at a very fast pace. In our case, we are doing it ourselves. But now there is a lot of thought and a lot of action also that whether it's officers or whether it is non-commissioned officers or soldiers, everyone has to be expert in the same field and the same skills that are required. Skills which are required today are quite different. Earlier when we spoke of a military conflict or a national conflict, people thought conflict meant only military conflict. People thought the only response would be a military response. That's not the case. There are many multiple domains where responses happen. The era where we said war will be declared, no wars are declared, but wars continuously are fought. You look at cyber domain. Nobody declares, nobody knows, but wars are on. Cyber wars are continuously on. Environmental wars are continuously on. Energy wars are continuously on. No declaration takes place. And you have to be good at understanding how such a scenario unfolds, and you have to take a lead in that. Recognizing that the domains of warfare were changing, somewhere in October 2018, the government declared that the armed forces would have a defense space agency, a defense cyber agency, and armed forces special operation division. Now, this is where a lot of private sector is involved and the private sector is doing a lot. In Hyderabad itself, there is an organization, DSP, which is working along with DSA, which is deeply engaged with the private sector and finding solutions as to what the nation requires. When we talk of DSA, DCYA, and now the drones have come, and the drones have come at such a speed and such a scale that a single drone is not being talked of. The entire lot of huge mushroom. So, how to use that technology is where things change, and how we are going to integrate and fuse, synergize all these sources. So, if you have ground sources giving you surveillance, then you have drones which give you surveillance, then you have your aircrafts and helicopters which give you surveillance. You have inner space and outer space assets. Now, all these have to be fused together and in a manner of seconds, not even minutes. And it has to go and reach right ahead. There was a period when all these things were residing in Delhi. Now we are saying no, it has to go right forward to the user. And the kind of communication revolution, what you've seen, what Elon Musk did, such revolutions in military affairs are ensuring that the era of status quo or the era of slow growth has to change. So where we are now aiming at is to see what is customized for us. It cannot be a Western model. It cannot be a Chinese model. All of us are told that there was a famous saying by somebody, know yourself and know your enemy. That somebody did not tell us. That was our own knowledge, our own itihas. Our ancestors, forefathers always spoke of Atma Bodh and Shatru Bodh. You don't have to start copying what is going on in the West. There is a lot that is here. We have to just discover it and move ahead. So whatever we are going to do hereafter, we have to customize our own requirements. And this is my small little urge to the industry. If you don't have something, acknowledge it. But please don't tell us that it is yours while you've done white labeling. And then there is a part which is discovered to be Chinese. And when the key is turned on you, and then we have huge number of requirements of drones or of satellites or such solutions, and suddenly you turn around and say, sir, my supply chain is not resilient. If your supply chain has to be resilient, we have to make things here. How do you decide on that? I just told you, the Chief of Army Staff said, every soldier will have a drone. You look at the MOQ that I have straight away told you. And when you say, why does every individual need? I told you why every individual needs. And here in the armed forces, we always believe in the weakest link has to be identified and strengthened. So a lot of training is required, which means a lot of equipment is required for training. So it is not only an operational requirement, there is a training requirement, then there is an operational requirement, and there is a resupply that is required. There is a lot of MRO facilities which are required. So there is a whole area which is open to you. It's only a question of how you are able to realize that. When the nation says Surakshit, Viksit Bharat 2047, I am adding Surakshit to that. If you have Viksit but not Surakshit, then your future or our future is going to be the future of the past. Again enslaved. Because if you stay idealistic and you are not able to protect what you are developing, then somebody else will come and occupy that. And that's what has always happened here. So we have to grow and we have to be secure. Unless you do these two things, you will not be able to take the country to 2047 goals. Now, somebody will again say, sir, in between there are roadblocks and there are activities and there are events like what happened in Pahalgam. Yes, a very tragic event. Our heart reaches out to all the families. But one thing which we have to realize, smaller minds will only focus towards personalities and incidents. But enlightened minds will absorb these incidents and events, overcome the personality deficiencies, but always focus towards the overall concept of 2047. So that is how we must focus on making India great, because that is what we owe to our future generations. And towards this part, I think we have an illustrious panel and we have very good speakers here who will give out their thoughts. Please absorb all those thoughts, and we have a very good time frame also, and I think I must thank the organizers for giving us enough time where people can hear and then we can ideate also. So with this, I will stop here, and maybe in between also I will intervene. So thank you so much. All of you, please have a wonderful session. Jai Hind.
Thank you for watching Drone TV, your gateway to the latest in drone technology, GIS innovations, and AI-driven solutions. To partner with us or promote your company on Drone TV, visit www.dronetv.in. Contact us at +917 5201 23555.